Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope covering Saturn's move into the sign of Sagittarius at the very end of 2014 for the better part of the next 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Saturn moving into a new sign does suggest that all of us in some way are going to understand that our most important learning is going to come if we pay attention to the lessons that we are being called to, if we pay attention, if we act practical, and if we put in the time to gain tangible results. Saturn, ultimately, it is my belief, and a lot of astrologers out there do believe, that Saturn is reward. Saturn needn't be difficult. Even though he gets a pretty bad rap, Saturn is saying manifest and honor the fact that we are incarnated. Honor the physical plane. And this is going to be a big lesson for all of us in some way. Saturn, as he moves to the sign of Sagittarius, will be speaking with Jupiter and Neptune and Uranus as well. All of this does speak to this call to be honest with ourselves, to put in the time, and to practically manifest, to move beyond what might be a dream, even a pipe dream, and actually do the work so that we gain something very valuable in the process, self-respect, which is ultimately what Saturn is truly about. Now, I have created a special video to look at Saturn, how Saturn moving into Sagittarius is going to speak to us collectively. But this video is, of course, for your sign. I thank you so much for being here. And I thank all of you out there who've been requesting these videos for months. Thank you so much for your trust in my interpretation of the sky. It will be a great transit. I do believe that. And it will be a great move as Saturn moves through the sign of Sagittarius. Enjoy. Hello, fabulous Libra. Thank you for being here. Saturn moving into the sign of Sagittarius, I think, is going to be great for you for a few different reasons. First and foremost, it will leave, or rather Saturn will leave the part of the sky that has to do with finances and taking ownership for your finances. So almost immediately, as we get you to the last days of 2014, you should start to feel, and should start the year of 2015, feeling a sense of financial, at least some stability, at the very least feeling like you did some good things over the last 3 years to help yourself grow in financial strength, to be financially strong. Now, do keep in mind, in the summer of 2014, you will be returning to some of the issues that have been with you since late 2012. So it's sort of the final bit of reaping benefit, if you will, from the things that you've already started and put into place to ensure a strong financial future. So whatever else needs to happen, this is when you start to understand the final bits of pieces so that you can experience greater prosperity for a very long time to come. Heal any relationship with money, if any sort of issues are there. Any kind of healing relationship with money issues might be there. This is a chance for you to go back and make sure that you do that work, that you strengthen that foundation so that you can move forward feeling a lot stronger with your financial picture. Saturn moving into the sign of Sagittarius brings with it a focus on a couple of different things. One is siblings, and another is communication. This has to do with finding your voice on a more elevated level. It has to do with finding your voice, developing it, and to a certain extent, sharing it as well. So let's go through them one at a time. Saturn moving into this part of the sky has to do with sort of the first people that you communicated with, the first people that you learned language with, which is usually siblings and cousins. It's the people who are equal to you within your family environment. So if you happen to have siblings or cousins, this is a time when they tend to ask for more of your attention, and they tend to bring up things within you that maybe you need to heal, that maybe you need to look at, holes in the relationship, any issues that have been there long standing that haven't been addressed for a while. This is a chance for you to actually bring them to the fore so that they can come to light and eventually be healed. Now, keep in mind, it does look like you may be feeling that, especially in 2015 and 16, it does look like the chance of you feeling like a sibling is asking for too much or needing too much attention, needing too much energy, is there. The chance of you, I'll be very honest with you, I'm always honest with you, but the chance of you feeling a sense of maybe disappointment as a result of the actions of a sibling or a cousin is there as well. And so ultimately this is about you also. Saturn also has to do with boundaries, setting some healthy boundaries in that regard also. And this also has to do with looking at how it is ultimately your siblings are integrated into your daily environment, where it is maybe that you need more space, where it is maybe that they're influencing even like your work environment a little bit too much. Some of you might have sort of a situation come up where a sibling might say to you, or a cousin might say to you, can you help me get a job where you work? And that might not feel like the most comfortable thing, having them around day in and day out. They might say to you, hey, I want to work out at the same gym that you do, and then you have to see this person all the time. And that sort of brings up a whole other dynamic of the relationship. Regardless of that, however it is that they end up sort of wanting to be part more of your daily life and your daily routines, it's going to be up to you to learn that fine balance between being present for them and gaining from that alliance, but also feeling like it's not taking too much. So that's going to be part of your sacred learning with them. If you end up feeling disappointment as a result of whatever it is that a sibling does, the higher lesson in it is going to be for you forgiveness, and it's going to be compassion. Not always the easiest lesson to go through, certainly, especially if there's been disappointment. But that's the journey that the universe is going to want to take you on. Learning healthy boundaries with these people, and at the same time understanding that there is a bond there that needs some healing. And that part of that healing includes your forgiveness and your compassion as well. So be open to those possibilities and that prospect also. For those of you who maybe it doesn't really apply, siblings and cousins, this energy, and even if it does apply, this energy also manifests in other ways as well. And as I said, it has to do with communication. It has to do with your neighbors as well. So in terms of just practical people and how it is that you are expressing yourself to them, especially in the immediacy, especially as you run into neighbors. How is it that you're communicating to them? Are you communicating to them in a way that feels good, that feels empowering, that feels like healthy boundaries as well? Is it that a neighbor is doing things that makes you feel like you want distance and you want to create those boundaries? All of these are issues that may come up for you. And it's a part of figuring out what are healthy ways to share and express and what might not be, what needs a little bit of your space, what needs a little bit of your distance as well. And it is going to be, and I do think, especially if you live in an area where you have a lot of neighbors, you might at this time get a neighbor who's got a lot of stuff happening in their life and it seems to disturb your life, their behavior. And it's going to be up to you to decide how you're going to deal with it. Ultimately, the answer is going to be compassion. Healthy boundaries and compassion. And so compassion doesn't mean that you allow them to move in and you allow them to take a cup of sugar every single day. But compassion can mean saying to yourself, okay, these are people that I don't really want integrated into my life, so I'm going to choose not to interact with them too much. And yet I'm going to understand that they're going through what they need to and there's not a lot of happiness there, which is a possibility, which is a way that this could end up manifesting. Now, as we move a little bit later in this cycle, there is the way that Saturn begins speaking with Uranus does suggest that you might end up really feeling, I look at the fact that Uranus is in a part of the sky that has to do with partnership and love and relationships. Saturn moving through a part of the sky that has to do with neighbors and siblings. It may be that a neighbor or sibling introduces you to somebody who ends up being an amazing partner to you in love or business. So this can definitely be a time, if you are open to love, this can be a time when you attract somebody into your life who really is refreshing and very different, but also very stable. And there is a very strong promise there of this being somebody long-term who's likely to be in a part of your life for a very long time to come. This can also be a time, if you're in a relationship, when you experience a deepening of commitment in a way that facilitates change and evolution in the relationship, but ultimately is based in something being a lot more secure and a lot more solid as well. If your relationship is still there, once we get you, because Uranus is known to bring changes, but if you're in a committed relationship, once we get you into 2017, you will find that relationship feels a lot stronger as you move through 2017. But if you're not, as I said, currently in a relationship, a sibling may introduce you to somebody, or a cousin may introduce you to somebody who really ends up being a great fit almost immediately. A very strong bond there is possible. And for certain signs, including yours, eloping is certainly possible. So that is a possibility as well. So it just moves very quickly in a very stable direction. It could be a neighbor that introduces you, as I said, or a neighbor might actually be that person as well. But there's an element of newness to this, okay? So it's not likely to be someone who's been your neighbor for a really long time, but rather someone new that moves in, and it just moves very quickly. It would move very quickly. So that is a possibility that could play out for you in the context of love as well. So be friendly. It always serves well to be friendly, and this energy really kicks in over the holiday season of 2016 and throughout 2017 as well. But as I said, one higher understanding of this part of the sky has to do with communication. It has to do with how you are expressing yourself, and it has to do with finding your voice and sharing your voice as well. And so this is a time when some Libras out there might be inspired to get to writing, actually start writing that book, be inspired to write that book. Now, it does look like it's a learning process, okay, especially in the beginning, especially in 2015 and 2016. It's very much a learning process. Might not always feel so smooth. You might get a little bit carried away, only to realize, that, oh, wow, I just went off in a whole other direction. I do think that, I think about the fact that, being a published writer myself and knowing many, many people who've written books, in some cases, many books, I do know that very often the first book you write doesn't end up being the book that ends up being published. Or even if you have had books published, sometimes you'll write a book that might not be the book that's meant to be published. And all of this ultimately is part of you really coming to understand what's involved in the process of writing, having the experience, gaining from the experience and the knowledge. So if you are writing about something that maybe isn't really aligned with what you're supposed to be writing about, what you're supposed to be writing about will become clear, especially in 2017. But you've got to trust the process as well. If you've never written a book especially, allow inspiration to carry you, but also practice non-attachment, because that ultimately is what is going to lead you in a much more solid and secure and strong direction, especially in terms of communicating effectively as well. This is going to be a time when your words, especially in the first year, but especially in 2015 and 16, your words can be misinterpreted. So you want to be mindful of how you might be coming across in writing. I mean, I think about the fact how, and it's been said, and people have made jokes about the fact that a lot of times, so much of what you read, like in text messages, for example, is about how you as the reader is interacting with the text, maybe not the same thing as the intention behind the text. The person sending it might be feeling, really light and happy and easy and breezy and open and welcoming and loving, but you are interpreting it as something hostile because you are interacting with that text and you're bringing all of your life and everything that happened, especially in that day and in that moment, how you're feeling in that moment, to that interpretation. So you're actually interacting with the text. This is something that's actually sort of one of those philosophical considerations about what is the meaning of words, what is the meaning of communication. And so you are actually interacting with this text. You're bringing meaning to this text. And so that is something that you're going to have to be mindful of, because the The possibility of you being misinterpreted and you misinterpreting others is very strong at the very beginning of this, because it is about you coming to have a deeper appreciation for words, and in the process understanding what you want to express, not only in a literal sense, yes, in a literal sense, but also in a more elevated sense. What do you want to express where it comes to who you are? What you're meant to share. These are going to be considerations as well as we move through Saturn moving through the sign of Sagittarius. It's about understanding what you have to share and what vehicle that's going to take. Are you going to share in the context of writing? Is that going to be a book? Is that going to be articles? In speaking, are you going to share in front of groups? Are you going to share online? Are you going to share in the context of writing a blog, in terms of a vlog, in terms of sharing on video? All of these, it all comes down to you figuring out what it is ultimately that you have to say. What do you uniquely have to say? You figure that out through a process of sort of trial and error in the beginning, the first 2 years. By the time we get you to the last year of this transit, you really find that something is coming together very poignantly so, and allowing you to just excel in terms of refining that message, understanding what that is, and figuring out a way to allow that message to create greater prosperity and greater possibility in your life as well. Well, thank you so much for watching this Saturn special. It'll be a great transit of Saturn. Enjoy.